Welcome to Devotionables, brief devotions for busy people. Today we will be looking at Deuteronomy 13. You know, if you've ever seen one of the Mission Impossible movies, there's always that scene towards the beginning, maybe towards the middle, where they're talking about all the challenges they have to overcome. They're talking about laser grids, about facial scanners, about mines, bombs, anything you can think of. And it's always very fun to see how they get through all those challenges. Well, today in Deuteronomy 13, we're looking at kind of a similar passage. The Israelites are about to enter the promised land after 40 years of wandering in the wilderness, and Moses is giving them a little bit of a picture of some of the things they will face as they try to stay true to Yahweh in that new land. So I'll go ahead and read a couple verses from Deuteronomy 13. It begins in verse 1. If a prophet or a dreamer of dreams arises among you and gives you a sign or wonder, and the sign or wonder that he tells you come to pass, and if he says, let us go after other gods, which you have not known, and let us serve them, you shall not listen to the words of that prophet or that dreamer of dreams. For the Lord your God is testing you to know whether you love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul. You shall walk after the Lord your God and fear him and keep his commandments and obey his voice, and you shall serve him and hold fast to him. But that prophet or that dreamer of dreams shall be put to death, because he has taught rebellion against the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt and redeemed you out of the house of slavery, to make you leave the way in which the Lord your God commanded you to walk. So you shall purge the evil from your midst. Now, this is one of the challenges Moses is warning them about prophets. Specifically, in this, it is not even prophets that speak false prophecies. They tell you that one thing's going to happen and then another thing happens. But here he says actually something they say will happen does happen. And it seems that they have a true spirit in them. And he's saying, watch out for that. If they say, even after their prophecy has come true, if they say we need to follow other gods, don't listen to them. And he actually says that the penalty for them should be death. Now, in our day and age now, as 21st century American Christians, we don't come across prophets who are telling us to follow Baal or different gods like that. But I think we can relate to this in the sense that it looks like something else is working besides faithfulness. You see, this guy, he's following other gods. He wants you to follow other gods. And what he says is going to happen actually happens. It's similar now to where if you talk with other people and they say, you know what, I know what the Bible says about being generous and giving money away, but I'm hoarding it all for myself and I am in the most comfortable spot I've ever been. You know, you can think about it. You're listening to people who say they're Mormons and they say, you know, I read the Bible and I just read the Book of Mormon and got so much more out of it. Now I'm so much happier as a person. There are a lot of times in our day and age where we'll look, just like the psalmist did in Psalm 73, look around and say, all these wicked people are doing these wicked things, but they're prospering more than I am. And what Moses is saying here, what God is telling us is don't give in to that. That's a test to see if you love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul. So that's number one. The number one challenge that we need to watch out for is watch out for when other things are seeming to be working besides faithfulness to God. Second thing he gets into is people. This is where it gets personal because he talks about specifically in verse 6, your brother, the son of your mother, your son, your daughter, or the wife you embrace, or your friend who is as your own soul. If any of those entice you secretly, saying, let us go and serve other gods, then do not give in to them, and still the penalty for them is death. Now, all of us can probably relate to this very well as well, because we all have friends or family members who are not following the Lord, and we love those people deeply. We want to believe that they're going to a good place when they die. We want to believe that they aren't making bad decisions, and it can be very easy to let that tempt our hearts to stop being faithful to Christ and to compromise. There is nothing so powerful as a family member who is given into a certain sin that will make you compromise your convictions about that sin. So God, Moses, they're telling us, don't yield to that either. Even if it's somebody who is as close as your own soul, if they are telling you to leave Christ, do not listen to them. All right, so we had prophets, we had people, and now we get politics. So in verse 12, if you hear in one of your cities, which the Lord your God is giving you to dwell there, that certain worthless fellows have gone out among you and have drawn away the inhabitants of their city, saying, let us go and serve other gods, which you have not known, then you shall inquire, make search, ask diligently, and if you find out that it's true, then you should also devote that entire city to destruction. So here, it's a whole entire city. Everybody in there has been deceived into thinking another God besides Yahweh should be followed. And in our day and age, it's very similar. If you look at polls, if you look at just your friend group, the majority of them probably will not be Christians if you are friends with people outside the church. And you can't let what the government's saying, you can't let what the culture is saying, what the TV's saying, any of that make you waver in your commitment to Christ. So those are the three things to watch out for in this life. You've got the prophets, you've got the people, and you've got politics. And then just briefly want to touch on how can we stand firm against these things. And one thing that you see consistent across all of these three is that you don't let it grow. You stamp it out when it's small. So in all of these, you don't let the movement grow. You don't let this prophet get a huge following. You don't let your family deceive many of your family members. You don't let multiple cities fall. But you stamp it out when it's small. And that's very similar to something John Owen, a Puritan preacher, said many years ago. He said, rise up against the small sin with as much indignation as you would if it were just about to accomplish what it aimed at. So if you have one lustful thought, rise up against that as if you were about to commit adultery against your wife. If you have one angry thought, and you just react a bit harshly, rise up against that, fight that with as much indignation, as much energy as if you were just about to hit somebody. You need to take captive the small thoughts, the small sins, so that they don't grow into bigger ones. That's one thing we can learn here. And then lastly, why do we do this? If you see here, Moses reminds them, the Lord your God is the one who brought you out of Egypt. We don't do this because it's just the right thing to do. We don't do this because we're legalistic. We do this because we're trying to stay faithful to Christ. He is the one who ultimately died. He took this punishment. We have all pursued other gods. He took this punishment for us, and it's for Him that we do this. So, in your day today, in your days throughout this week and throughout this year, whenever you come against challenges such as people, such as prophets, such as politics, be sure to stand firm for Christ.